Willow Wilson rushed through the rain-slicked hospital corridors, her scrubs still stained with coffee from an accident 3 hours into her 12-hour shift. She was exhausted, her mind buzzing with the chaos of the emergency room, but as she pushed through the doors of the children's oncology ward, her face softened into a smile. This was why she became a nurse: these moments, these children, these small victories against impossible odds. Nurse Willow. A thin voice called out from the third room on the right. 8-year-old Tommy, battling leukemia for the second time, waved eagerly from his bed. "Hey, champ," Willow said, stepping into his room. "I heard you ate all your lunch today. That's fantastic." Tommy beamed, his pale face lighting up. "Dr. Harper said if I keep this up, I might get to go home for a weekend." "That would be amazing," Willow replied, checking his vitals. She'd grown attached to Tommy over the past 6 months. His resilience in the face of his illness inspired her daily, reminding her why she pushed through the grueling shifts and emotional toll of pediatric oncology nursing. As Willow finished her rounds, her supervisor caught her at the nurse's station. "Wilson, I need to speak with you, doctor," Sanchez said, her expression serious. "The budget cuts are worse than we anticipated. We're going to have to let some staff go." Willow's heart sank. "How many?" "5 nurses from pediatrics alone." "I'm sorry, Willow, you're one of our best, but you're also one of our newest hires." "Last in, first out," Willow said numbly. "I understand. You have 2 weeks. I'll write you an excellent recommendation." Willow nodded, her mind already racing with calculations. Her student loans, her mother's medical bills, her rent, it all added up to a sum that terrified her. She had some savings, but not enough to stay afloat for long in Boston's expensive housing market. As she left the hospital that evening, the weight of uncertainty pressed down on her shoulders. The cold November air bit at her cheeks as she walked to the bus stop, her thin jacket doing little against the chill. "Miss, wait!" Willow turned to see Tommy's mother, Karen, running toward her, clutching a business card. "I heard about the layoffs," Karen said, slightly out of breath. "My brother works for Montgomery Industries. They're looking for a private nurse for the CEO's mother. The pay is excellent and—" Karen hesitated. "The CEO, Mitchell James, he's been donating to the children's ward anonymously for years. He's a good man, despite what the tabloids say." Willow took the card, turning it over in her fingers. "I don't know, Karen. Private nursing isn't really what I trained for. Please, just consider it. Tommy loves you, and I'd hate to see you go. Besides, Mrs. James has Alzheimer's. She needs someone with patience and compassion, someone like you." Willow tucked the card into her pocket. "I'll think about it. Thank you, Karen." That night in her small apartment, Willow researched Montgomery Industries and its enigmatic CEO. Mitchell James had built a tech empire worth billions, starting from his college dorm room. At 32, he was known for his brilliant mind, ruthless business tactics, and aversion to the spotlight. The few photos she found showed a strikingly handsome man with intense blue eyes and dark hair, always in impeccable suits, always with a serious expression. His mother, Eleanor James, had been diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's 5 years ago. According to the articles Willow found, Mitchell had stepped back from some of his company responsibilities to care for her, refusing to place her in a facility despite her deteriorating condition. By morning, Willow had made her decision. She called the number on the card and scheduled an interview for the following day. The James estate was located in Brookline, a wealthy suburb just outside Boston proper. As her Uber approached the gates, Willow fought back waves of insecurity. The mansion was imposing a grand colonial revival surrounded by meticulously landscaped gardens. It was worlds away from her modest upbringing in South Boston. A butler greeted her at the door, leading her through a marble foyer into a study where Mitchell James waited, standing behind a massive mahogany desk. In person, he was even more striking than in photographs. Tall, with broad shoulders and a commanding presence, he radiated authority. His expression was guarded as he gestured for her to sit. "Miss Wilson, your references are impressive," he said, his voice deep and measured. "Dr. Sanchez speaks very highly of your skills, particularly your work with difficult patients." "Thank you, Mr. James," Willow replied, struggling to maintain eye contact. "I've always believed that compassion is as important as clinical knowledge when caring for vulnerable patients." Something in his expression softened slightly. "My mother was a kindergarten teacher for 30 years. She dedicated her life to caring for others. Now she often doesn't recognize me." His voice remained steady, but Willow caught the pain behind his words. "I need someone who will treat her with dignity, regardless of how difficult she becomes." "I understand," Willow said softly. "My own mother has missed watching someone you love lose parts of themselves is. There are no words for it." Mitchell studied her for a long moment. "The position requires you to live here. Your quarters would be adjacent to my mother's suite. The compensation package includes full benefits and a salary significantly higher than what you earned at Boston Memorial. Would that be acceptable?" Willow hesitated. Living in this mansion, so close to this intimidating man, felt daunting. But the salary he mentioned would allow her to pay off her student loans within a year and still have enough to help with her mother's treatments. "Yes," she said finally. "I would like to meet Mrs. James before making a final decision, if that's possible." Mitchell nodded, rising from his chair. "Of course, follow me." Eleanor James's suite was on the second floor, a bright, airy space overlooking the gardens. The elderly woman sat by the window, her silver hair neatly styled, her hands folded in her lap. When Mitchell entered, her face lit up with recognition. "Mitch, darling," she said, extending her hand. "Have you come to take me to lunch? I'm meeting the garden club at noon." Mitchell gently took her hand. "Not today, Mom. I'd like you to meet Willow. She might be your new nurse." Eleanor turned her gaze to Willow, her blue eyes so like her son's bright with curiosity. "Are you a friend of Mitchell's from college?" "No, Mrs. James," Willow replied, sitting beside her. "I'm a nurse. I've been working with children at Boston Memorial." "Children," Eleanor repeated, her expression softening. "I taught kindergarten, you know. Little ones are the best judges of character." She studied Willow's face. "You have kind eyes. My Mitch needs more kind people in his life." Mitchell cleared his throat. "Mom, Willow would be here to help you, not me." Eleanor patted his hand absently. "Of course, dear. That's what I meant." Willow spent an hour with Eleanor, asking gentle questions and observing her cognitive state. The older woman drifted between clarity and confusion, sometimes recognizing her surroundings, sometimes believing she was still teaching. Throughout it all, Mitchell remained by her side, his patience and tenderness toward his mother revealing a side of him not captured in any magazine profile. As they left Eleanor with her regular caretaker, Mitchell turned to Willow. "Well, Miss Wilson, what do you think?" "She's in the moderate stage," Willow said professionally. "Her long-term memory is still relatively intact, but her short-term memory and time orientation are significantly impaired. I believe I can help make her days more comfortable and engaging." She paused. "And please call me Willow." "Willow," he repeated, the name sounding different in his deep voice. "When can you start?" "I have 2 weeks left at the hospital," she explained. "After that, I can start immediately." "Perfect," Mitchell said. "I'll have the employment contract drawn up by tomorrow. My assistant will email it to you." 2 weeks later, Willow moved into the James estate, bringing her meager belongings to a suite larger than her entire apartment. The transition was surreal, like stepping into someone else's life. The staff, a housekeeper, a chef, a gardener, and 2 assistants who managed Mitchell's home affairs, were polite but reserved. Mitchell himself was rarely present, often working late at his company headquarters downtown or traveling for business. Caring for Eleanor became the center of Willow's world. She developed routines to help maintain the older woman's cognitive function, memory exercises in the morning, walks in the garden when weather permitted, music therapy in the afternoons. On good days, Eleanor would share stories from her teaching years or Mitchell's childhood. On bad days, when confusion and agitation took over, Willow would sit with her, providing calm reassurance until the storm passed. It was during one such episode, 3 weeks into her employment, that Mitchell witnessed Willow's approach firsthand. He had returned early from a business trip to find his mother in distress, convinced that her long-deceased husband was missing and in danger. From the doorway, Mitchell watched as Willow gently validated Alina's feelings without reinforcing her delusion. "You're worried about John," Willow said softly, holding Alina's trembling hands. "That must be frightening for you." "He's never this late," Alina insisted, tears in her eyes. "Something terrible has happened." "I understand why you're upset," Willow continued. "John is very important to you. Let's have some tea while we wait for news. I'll stay with you so you're not alone." Gradually, Alina calmed, allowing Willow to guide her to a comfortable chair where she eventually dozed off. Only then did Mitchell make his presence known, stepping into the room with a quiet greeting. "How long has she been like this today?" he asked, his voice low. "About an hour," Willow replied. "These episodes are becoming more frequent, but they're shorter than when I first arrived." Mitchell ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of vulnerability. "You're remarkable with her." The last nurse would argue, try to force Mom back to reality. It only made things worse. "Reality is subjective for someone with Alzheimer's," Willow explained. "Meeting her where she is emotionally is often more effective than confrontation." Mitchell nodded, his gaze lingering on her face. "Have you eaten?" Chef made pasta before he left for the evening. The question surprised her. In the weeks she'd been there, they'd barely spoken beyond necessary communications about Alina's care. "I haven't," she admitted, "but I should stay with your mother." "I'll sit with her," Mitchell offered. "You need breaks too, Willow. I've noticed you rarely take the time off that's built into your schedule." "I don't mind," she said honestly. "I enjoy being with her." Something in Mitchell's expression shifted, a warmth entering his eyes. "Nevertheless, please take care of yourself. My mother has grown attached to you. I'd hate to see you burn out." Willow felt a blush rise to her cheeks. "Thank you. I'll get something to eat then." That night marked a change in their interactions. Mitchell began making more appearances during Alina's waking hours, often joining them for activities or meals. Willow discovered that, beneath his reserved exterior, was a man of surprising depth and humor. He would read to his mother from her favorite books, his deep voice bringing the stories to life. Sometimes, on Alina's clearer days, the three of them would play card games, and Willow would catch glimpses of the bond between mother and son, a relationship built on decades of love and mutual respect. As weeks turned into months, Willow found herself looking forward to Mitchell's presence, her heart racing whenever he entered a room. It was unprofessional, she knew, to develop feelings for her employer. But there was something about the contrast between the powerful businessman the world knew and the gentle son she witnessed daily that touched her deeply. Winter melted into spring, and Alina's condition continued its slow decline. There were more confused days than clear ones now, more moments when she didn't recognize her son. During these times, Mitchell would retreat to his home office, burying himself in work to escape the pain of his mother's fading recognition. One evening, after a particularly difficult day, Willow found him on the terrace, staring out at the garden Alina had once tended with such care. She hesitated, uncertain if her presence would be welcome, but something about the slope of his shoulders compelled her forward. "She's resting now," Willow said softly, standing beside him. "The new medication seems to help with the sundowning." Mitchell nodded, not looking at her. "Thank you." They stood in silence for a moment, the spring air cool around them. "She called me John today," Mitchell finally said, his voice tight. "She thought I was my father." Willow gently placed her hand on his arm, a gesture of comfort she would have offered any family member of a patient. "I'm sorry, Mitchell. I know how much that hurts." He turned to her then, his eyes reflecting pain and something else of vulnerability she hadn't seen before. "How do you do it? Care so deeply for people who are suffering day after day?" "Because it matters," she answered simply. Because even in confusion, there's still a person there who deserves dignity and love. Mitchell's gaze held hers. You're extraordinary, Willow Wilson. Do you know that? Before she could respond, he leaned down and kissed her, a gentle press of lips that sent her heart racing. For a moment, she allowed herself to respond, to feel the warmth of his touch before reality crashed back. She pulled away, shaking her head. We can't, Mitchell. I work for you. Your mother is my patient. I know, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I'm sorry, that was inappropriate. It's not that I don't, she began, then stopped herself. It's complicated. Everything in my life is complicated, he said with a rueful smile. Except how I feel about you, that's surprisingly simple. Willow took a step back. I should check on your mother. As she turned to leave, Mitchell called after her. Willow, nothing has to change. I respect your professional boundaries. But things did change. A tension now existed between them, an awareness that made casual interactions charged with unspoken feelings. Willow threw herself into Alina's care, extending her hours and minimizing time alone with Mitchell. Meanwhile, Alina's condition worsened rapidly. Her periods of lucidity grew rarer, and she began to have difficulty with basic tasks like dressing and eating. Mitchell canceled international business trips to be present, watching with heartbreaking stoicism as his mother slipped further away. One night, as a summer storm raged outside, Alina experienced a catastrophic episode of confusion that resulted in a fall. Willow found her on the bathroom floor, disoriented and in pain. The ambulance arrived quickly, rushing Alina to the hospital with Mitchell and Willow following behind. X-rays confirmed a broken hip. Given Alina's age and condition, the prognosis was guarded. Surgery was necessary but risky. In the sterile waiting room of the hospital, Mitchell paced like a caged animal, his usual composure shattered. Willow sat quietly, giving him space to process his emotions. I should have been there, he said suddenly, stopping in front of her. If I hadn't been on a conference call, this isn't your fault, Willow interrupted firmly. Falls are common with Alzheimer's patients, no matter how careful the supervision. Mitchell sank into the chair beside her, burying his face in his hands. She made me promise never to put her in a facility. After my father died, she was terrified of ending up alone, surrounded by strangers. His voice broke. But maybe she would be safer. Maybe my selfishness in keeping her home has put her at risk. Mitchell, look at me, Willow said gently. When he raised his head, she continued. Your mother has lived with dignity and love because of your choices. She's surrounded by familiar things, by people who care about her. That matters more than you know. He reached for her hand, holding it tightly. I don't know what I would have done these past months without you. The surgery was successful, but the recovery would be long and complicated by Alina's cognitive state. She would need intensive rehabilitation, constant supervision, and specialized care. A week later, as they prepared to bring Alina home from the hospital, Mitchell called Willow into his study. His expression was serious, his posture tense. I've made a decision, he said. I'm stepping down as CEO of Montgomery Industries, effective immediately. Willow stared at him in shock. Mitchell, what? Your company will continue under the leadership of my COO, he finished. I'll retain majority ownership and board position, but the day-to-day operations will no longer be my responsibility. But you've built that company from nothing, Willow protested. It's your life's work. It's a business, he corrected her. My mother is my family. She needs me now, and I intend to be fully present for whatever time she has left. Willow was stunned by his decision. The Mitchell James she had first met seemed defined by his company, his ambition, his drive. This sacrifice revealed the depth of his character in a way that touched her profoundly. What will you do? She asked quietly. Be a son, he replied simply. And hopefully convince the woman I've fallen in love with to give us a chance. Willow's breath caught. Mitchell, I know the timing is terrible, he continued. And I know you have reservations about our professional relationship, but I'm no longer your employer, Willow. I've arranged for a team of specialized nurses to care for my mother, supervised by her doctor. Your position here was always temporary until we found the right long-term solution. You're firing me, Willow asked, hurt flashing across her face. No, Mitchell said quickly. I'm freeing you from an ethical dilemma. You can continue working with my mother if that's what you want, as part of her care team, not as my employee. Or you can explore other opportunities. I've spoken with Dr. Sanchez, and she's eager to have you back at Boston Memorial. A significant donation has allowed them to expand the pediatric oncology department. Willow's mind raced. You donated money to get me my job back. I donated money because it was the right thing to do, Mitchell corrected. Children like Tommy deserve the best care possible. Whether you return there is entirely your decision. The mention of Tommy reminded Willow of how she had come to the James household in the first place, a desperate choice made during a difficult time. She had never expected to find not only financial security but also a connection that changed her heart. I need time to think, she said finally. This is all so sudden, Mitchell nodded. Take all the time you need, I'm not going anywhere. Over the next weeks, as Alina began her difficult recovery, Willow continued to help with her care while wrestling with her decision. She visited Boston Memorial, spoke with Dr. Sanchez about returning, and spent time with Tommy, whose condition had stabilized enough for him to undergo a promising new treatment. Throughout this period of uncertainty, Mitchell maintained a respectful distance, never pressuring her for an answer about their personal relationship, though his feelings were clear in the way he looked at her, the way he valued her input on his mother's care. Alina, during one of her increasingly rare moments of clarity, caught Willow's hand as she adjusted her pillows. He loves you, you know, the older woman said, her eyes suddenly sharp and knowing. My son, he looks at you the way John looked at me. Willow felt her cheeks warm. Mrs. James, Alina dear, we're past formalities. She squeezed Willow's hand with surprising strength. Life is too short for hesitation. My mind is going, but my heart remembers what matters. Love matters, Willow. Everything else is just details. That evening, Willow found Mitchell in the garden, sitting on a bench beneath Alina's favorite magnolia tree. She took a seat beside him, gathering her courage. I've made my decision, she said quietly. Mitchell turned to her, his expression guarded. About the hospital position. About everything, Willow clarified. I'm going back to Boston Memorial part-time. They're creating a flexible schedule that will allow me to continue my education. I want to become a nurse practitioner specializing in geriatric care. That's wonderful, Mitchell said, though she could hear the question in his voice, the uncertainty about what this meant for them. I'm also staying on as part of your mother's care team, she continued. Not as a live-in nurse, but regular shifts, Dr. Reeves thinks it will provide valuable continuity for her. Mitchell nodded slowly. You've thought this through carefully. I have, Willow agreed. And there's one more thing. She took a deep breath. I'd like to have dinner with you, not here, not as your employee or your mother's nurse. Just two people getting to know each other properly. The smile that spread across Mitchell's face transformed him, erasing the worry lines that had been his constant companion for months. I'd like that very much. Their first official date was at a small Italian restaurant in the North End, far from the upscale establishments where Mitchell was known. Dressed in civilian clothes rather than scrubs or business attire, they discovered each other anew, sharing stories, dreams, fears that had remained unspoken during their months under the same roof. Why did you really step down? Willow asked over dessert, the question that had lingered in her mind. The truth, Mitchell. He considered her question, twirling the stem of his wine glass between his fingers. My father was brilliant, a financial wizard who built a successful investment firm. He was also absent for most of my childhood, always claiming the next deal couldn't wait, the next client couldn't be rescheduled. When he died suddenly of a heart attack, my mother was devastated not just by his loss, but by all the time they never had. Mitchell's eyes met hers. When my mother was diagnosed, I promised myself I wouldn't make his mistakes. I tried to balance everything: the company, her care, my responsibilities. But watching you with her, seeing how fully present you were every day, made me realize I was still holding back, still letting the business consume too much of me." He reached across the table for her hand. "So yes, I stepped down for my mother. But also for myself, for the chance to become someone who recognizes what truly matters before it's too late." Their relationship blossomed slowly, built on the foundation of mutual respect and shared values that had formed during their time as employer and employee. Mitchell supported Willow's career ambitions, helping fund a scholarship for nurses seeking advanced degrees in specialized care. Willow helped Mitchell find balance, introducing him to the simple pleasures his workaholic lifestyle had never allowed. Eleanor's condition continued to decline, but she was surrounded by expert care and, more importantly, by love. On her good days, she delighted in seeing Mitchell and Willow together, sometimes mistaking them for a young married couple, sometimes recognizing them correctly. Either way, her approval was evident in her smile. A year after their first date, during a weekend trip to the coast of Maine, Mitchell proposed on a rocky beach at sunset. Willow, who had once rushed through hospital corridors wondering how she would pay her bills, said yes to the man who had given up an empire to follow his heart. They married in a simple ceremony in the garden of the James estate, with Eleanor in attendance, lucid enough that day to recognize the significance of the event. Tommy, now in remission, served as ring bearer, his recovery a reminder of why Willow had become a nurse in the first place. "My mother once told me that love isn't about grand gestures," Mitchell said during his vows. "It's about the choice to keep showing up day after day, especially when it's difficult. You showed me what that looks like, Willow. You chose compassion when it would have been easier to walk away. You chose to see the person behind the disease, the man behind the CEO. I promise to make that same choice every day for the rest of our lives." Eleanor passed away peacefully 6 months after their wedding, having lived far longer and with more dignity than her initial prognosis suggested. Her legacy lived on in the Eleanor James Foundation, which Mitchell and Willow established to support research into Alzheimer's treatment and to provide resources for families caring for loved ones with the disease. 2 years later, as Willow completed her nurse practitioner certification, she and Mitchell welcomed twins, a boy and a girl they named Thomas and Eleanor, honoring those who had brought them together. The James household, once a place of quiet dignity and hidden pain, became filled with children's laughter. Mitchell never returned to his CEO position, though he remained active on the board and as a mentor to young entrepreneurs. Instead, he found fulfillment in balancing family life with philanthropic work, using his business acumen to maximize the impact of their foundation. Willow divided her time between family, her practice specializing in geriatric care, and occasional shifts in the pediatric oncology ward at Boston Memorial, where she could still connect with the children who had first captured her heart. On quiet evenings, they would sit together in the garden Eleanor had loved, watching their children play beneath the magnolia tree. In these moments, Mitchell would often take Willow's hand, a gesture of gratitude for the nurse who had cared for his mother and in doing so taught him to reprioritize his world. "You ever regret it?" Willow asked him once, 5 years into their marriage. "Walking away from daily leadership of your company?" Mitchell looked at their children, then back to his wife, his expression serene. "Not for a second. Some people spend their entire lives accumulating wealth, only to realize too late that the most valuable things can't be bought or sold." He squeezed her hand. "I'm the richest man in the world, Willow James, and it has nothing to do with my bank account.